Hello, my puzzle-loving friends. Thank you so much for joining me again. Today, we're going to go on an adventure aboard the ship Titanic. I am super excited to do this puzzle. It is a 1,000-piece puzzle. It is a mystery jigsaw puzzle where we'll be solving the mystery of who was murdered aboard the Titanic. This puzzle has 3 sections. We're going to read the story, assemble the puzzle, and solve. The only thing that's going to kind of be hard with this is that the puzzle is different from the picture on the box, so we're not going to have that reference. The story is by John Lutz, and the book is an 11-page story. The last page, page 12, tells us the solution, which hopefully we're not going to need to read. We'll solve the murder with the puzzle. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into it. I'm going to start reading the story so that we know who got murdered, the clues, so we can solve this as we're creating our puzzle. Murder on the Titanic. It's time to solve a murder, Great-Grandma Everton said to Ella in a faint and distinctive voice. Ella wasn't sure what she meant and couldn't imagine who had been murdered or why. For what matter? Maybe no one had been murdered. Great-Grandma was 105 years old, and her mind wasn't always there. According to Dr. Williams, she was dying. So when Great-Grandma summoned her only living relative, Ella responded. Great-Grandma was an iron-willed survivor who in another era had lived through the sinking of the Titanic. But even for the world-born survivors, time eventually runs out. Now 23, Ella sat in the many-roomed house and looked at the frail, pallid figure on the bed. Great-Grandma, whose name was Gwendolyn, had been born one of a pair of attractive twin sisters. Her sister Gloria was entombed in the Titanic beneath the sea. It was hard for Ella to imagine that the frail woman in the bed had been a vivacious, dark-haired woman in the old photographs of the wealthy and beautiful Everton twins. The woman who went to Australia with her husband recovered her health and began a large family. You'll soon be all that's left of the family, Great-Grandma began. So it's fitting that you know what happened that night. Our mother was worried about us sailing to America on the Titanic. We were bound to a fortune, and we were bound to be fortune hunters abroad who wanted to seduce and marry wealthy prospects. But despite the warnings, we boarded at Southampton. What a wonderful ship it was, like a grand palace afloat. The wide sweeping staircase, palm-decorated verandas, fancy restaurants, plush lounges, and smoking rooms. There is a wide deck, parts of it private, and a Turkish bath, gymnasium, and a swimming pool and squash court. And fancy dinners and dances. It was like a floating dream. Gwendolyn, Great-Grandma always referred to her younger self in the third person when reminiscing about the Titanic, and Gloria looked exactly alike. They were bound together by that almost telepathic love-envy closeness found only in twins. But Gwendolyn had the worse luck than her twin sister. She was consumptive and always held a handkerchief clutched in her hand, into which she often coughed, sometimes leaving traces of blood. But they were both young and wealthy, and natural prey for fortune hunters. The first day at sea, Gwendolyn was strolling on the promenade deck with her parasol and dropped some Titanic souvenir postcards she'd bought. A well-dressed man with thick black hair and twinkling blue eyes helped her scoop them up before the sea breeze could snatch them and carry them overboard. Adam Lipton, he said, with a dazzling smile. When Gwendolyn shyly told him who she was, he said, I know. I saw you and your sister board at Southampton. The fact that you're twins caught my attention, but it was you who held it. Gwendolyn was flattered, of course. In fact, she was beguiled, but following her mother's advice, she pretended not to be interested. I suspect he's attracted to your money, Gloria told her that evening when they were dressing for dinner in the stateroom they shared on B deck. They didn't feel as if they were on a ship. The room was lavishly furnished, and the vessel's great size tamed the waves so that it was almost as steady as solid ground. You don't know him, Gwendolyn said, choosing a pair of plain earrings from her jewelry box. Gloria looked grimly at her in the dresser mirror. Neither do you, really. Remember what Mother said about fortune hunters. We'll see how well you remember it when someone that handsome is attracted to you, Gwendolyn said with a smile. But at dinner, another handsome young man seated at their table seemed to be drawn not to Gloria, but to Gwendolyn. He was in his late 20s and had large, dark eyes and wavy blonde hair. When Gloria told him he had a sensitive face, the face of an artist, he turned to Gwendolyn and said, "Your sister's right. I'm a playwright." He introduced himself to all at the table. "I'm Louise Burnsword, and I'm going to New York to get financial backing for my new book. Double bed." Gloria blushed. Everyone at the table laughed. Conversation and wine flowed freely. The food and service was excellent, and the Everton twins agreed that sailing on the Titanic was marvelous. After dinner, the twins had drinks in the first-class lounge on A deck, and Burnsword continued focusing his charms on Gwendolyn. Gloria noticed Adam Lipton standing off to the side, glaring at Burnsword. But a few minutes later, he was all smiles as he joined them, and Gwendolyn introduced the two men. "I'm an old friend of Gwendolyn's," Lipton said with a wink aimed at both twins. "I was under the impression everyone here met on board," Burnsword said, obviously eyeing Lipton as a rival. "There are sharks around here," Gloria said. "There's not so much a danger in these waters," a man nearby said. "The Atlantic's too cold for them this far north." "I wasn't thinking about the ocean," Gloria said. Burnsword looked at her smiling. "Are you an actress? You and your sister are certainly beautiful enough." "Perhaps you can find financing for your new play even before you reach New York," Gloria said. Gwendolyn stared at her. "My sister has a suspicious nature." "She should be suspicious," Lipton said. "Two young women of such beauty, obvious means, are the natural targets of the unscrupulous." "A professional actor couldn't have said it better," Burnsword told him. The conversation might have become more openly hostile if a handsome bearded man in a white star-lined uniform who'd been making his way through the lounge and introducing himself hadn't approached the table. "I'm Captain Edward Smith," he said. "Are you enjoying the voyage?" Everyone at the table put aside ill feelings and assured the captain that his great ship was a pleasure. Captain Smith smiled at the Everton twins. "You two should bring us luck," he said. "The Titanic has a twin sister ship, the Olympic. Perhaps there's a set of identical twins on board her, too." He gave them a little salute and moved on to chat with other passengers. After leaving the lounge, Gwendolyn and Gloria put on sweaters and went to the promenade deck. Though the night was cool, it was beautiful. Stars shone in the black Atlantic sky like burning lamps, almost within touching distance. The twins stopped, walking, and leaned on the rail, admiring the night sky. When Gloria said something and got no answer, She heard a familiar cough and saw Gwendolyn had wandered off and was talking to Adam Lipton. They leaned close to each other, and Gloria was sure she saw them kiss. As Lipton was walking away, Gwendolyn saw Gloria approach. "Remember that once the ship docks in New York, we probably won't see anyone who's on board again," Gloria said. "That's not necessarily true," Gwendolyn said. She began walking with a sense of purpose. "Where are you going?" Gloria asked. "To the first-class smoking room. It's towards the front of the ship." "The bow, you mean," Gloria said. "Just aft of the veranda and palm court. Mr. Burnsword had been teaching me terms." Gloria obviously enjoyed the twinge of jealousy that showed on Gwendolyn's moonlight features. So Gwendolyn was interested in the young playwright as well as Adam Lipton. In the smoking room, Lipton was seated alone at one of the tables, puffing on a cigar. At a nearby table, half a dozen men were engaged in a poker game. Gwendolyn and Gloria were the only women in the room, and they attracted several frank and admiring stares. The sisters were glad to sit down with Lipton, so they were less the object of attention. Gwendolyn gave a soft, muffled cough into her handkerchief. "Is the smoke in here a bother to your condition?" Lipton asked, his expression concerned. "It's understandable why you're so interested," Gloria said. Lipton stared at her. "Perhaps you only think you understand." "So here you are," a man's voice said. Louis Burnsword approached the table. He was wearing a well-cut gray jacket and blue silk ascot. As he sat down without being invited, he and Gwendolyn exchanged smiles. Gloria and Lipton glared at him. "Did I arrive at a bad time?" Burnsworth asked. "The perfect time," Gloria said. "We were just discussing how my sister is an object of fortune hunters." "That's unfair," Burnsworth said. "Unless, of course, you're talking about Mr. Lipton. As for myself, I'm genuinely fond of Gwendolyn." He reached across the table and rested his hand on hers. "No more fond of her than I am," Lipton said. "What you both fond of is money," Gloria told him. Gwendolyn stood up. "That's a terrible thing to say." "It's obvious you're jealous of your sister," Lipton said to Gloria. She regarded him calmly, but with contempt. "I'd slap you for that remark, only—" "He's the type of man who might slap a woman back," Burnsword interrupted. He and Lipton stood up at the same time. Lipton swung his fist at Burnsword, who grabbed his wrist before the blow could land. "This isn't the place for that," a man's deep voice said, and a tall, well-built man who'd been playing cards inserted his arms between Lipton and Burnsword and forced them apart as easily as if they were quarreling children. Lipton fell back into his chair, while Burnsword backed up several steps, almost losing his balance. "Neither of these lovely ladies wants to see you fight," the young man said, smiling at both Gwendolyn and Gloria. He had a tanned face, perfectly even white teeth, and straight dark hair, parted in the middle. "My name's Luke Bear, but mostly I'm called Tex. I overheard the conversation, and you're both so lovely that neither one needs to be jealous of the other." No one moved or said anything in reply. Tex's size and obvious strength had discouraged any more physical violence. Gloria was the first to speak, stammering her thanks to Tex. He grinned at her. "Well, you are like two beautiful peas in a pod. I'll escort you to the door while these two gentlemen cool down." we're gonna stop there, my puzzle-loving friends. There's so much more to the story. We're gonna go ahead and get more in depth on my next video. Please, I hope you enjoyed me working on this puzzle, getting to the bottom of this mystery. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and press that like button. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, don't forget to go ahead and hit that bell button so you don't miss any fun that we have here. Again, thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. You'll have a great day, and I will see you next time so we can finish up the murder on the Titanic.